Hello everyone and welcome to my October wrap up part 1. First up, can we just say I'm loving my corner, little autumnal Halloween display. I'm living for it and loving it. So to get into the reviews, the first thing I read, let's just say it was an unfortunate start to the reading month. I read this. I've just finished Everything by Nicola. This is a very popular YA book. Got a lot to say about it. So it's about a girl called Maddie who's allergic to everything. She can't step outside the house and people can't come inside her own house. It's just her and her mum. She used to have a dad and brother, but they died in an accident, and she has a nurse that comes in called Carla, and that's it. That's her whole world, is those two women. That's it. Until a boy moves in next door. Now before the boy moved in, you're really learning about how she's housebound and her world is so limited, and she loves books, and that's where she kind of goes into different worlds, and she's coping. She still thinks it's very unfair that she's sick, but she's kind of coping with her reality. Until a boy moves in and she instantly falls in love with him. It's a YA. They start messaging each other online. So I felt she was being very selfish first off, because her and her mum used to have little movie nights and Scrabble nights, and her mum would do like French Fridays when she cooked French food on Fridays, and just try and add to Maddie's life because Maddie couldn't go out. And then as soon as Maddie starts talking to this boy, she's like, oh no mum, I can't, I'm going to my room. I'm going out to my room, goodbye. Secondly, I'm just going to go through my pet peeves, you know me. There were so many illustrations in this which were done by Nicola's husband, David Yoon, and I like his illustrations, but it didn't need to be in this book. So a whole page would be one full illustration which didn't need to be there. There'd also be pictures of receipts in there. So she'd say, oh, I've bought this, and then the next page would be taken up by just a receipt of what she bought. I was like, Nicola, I believe you. I believe your character bought that. I don't need proof of purchase. It's fine. So this is a bit of a cliffhanger ending. You don't know where the relationships are going to go from here. You have no idea. You're just left hanging. So I didn't like that. I didn't like the romance was the main story within it. Wasn't a huge fan of this instant love, you know, obsession, passion with each other, even though you know nothing about each other. You read the plot of this book and you think, oh, it's going to be really interesting. She's allergic to everything, but it's not. It's just your romance book, to be fair with you. Something quite shocking happens at the end, and I really wanted another 100 pages on that, on those two people's relationship, really going into it, seeing what the outcome of that's going to be. I thought that would have been really interesting, but because it's not to do with the romance, she just left it. Oh well, who knows what will happen, let's get back to the romance. And I really didn't enjoy that within the book at all. If you're looking for a romance, go for it. If you're looking for a book with substance, rude. If you're looking for a good book, don't look here. No, it did have good elements, but on the whole, just wasn't believable that they would be this passionate with each other, and she doesn't go to school, so it's not like she's had experience with loads of other guys that she can say, I know what love is, and I know what like is, and I know what a crush is, so I know this is love. She didn't have that experience, so it just felt very much like the first boy she saw, she was like, oh my god, I'm in love with him. This was okay. So as you just saw, I wasn't a massive fan of this. I'm not angry, I'm disappointed. Let's just put you over there, let's not talk about that book. So after the book that shall never be named again, I read this, which is Poetry for Young People by Maya Angelou. Massive fan of Maya Angelou. So this is her poetry collection. It is illustrated by Jerome Lagrue, I want to say, and it's like oil illustrations that are absolutely beautiful. So as you can see here, a kind of blurred effect on them. One thing I really love this is it's so accessible for children. So there'll be a poem here, and then they'll have a brief paragraph, a few lines saying what the poem is about. So things that children maybe will not understand. In this, she talks about everything. She talks about love, loss, slavery. There's a great one which is like a work song. So many great topics in here. And I also love that in the paragraphs, it tells children questions. So with this line, what do you think she meant? This is what it's about. What do you think? I think this is absolutely beautiful. I loved this so much. It was so sad though. Everything Maya Angelou has ever done is hard-hitting, and it really hits you hard. And I think what's so good about her is she talks about massive issues like slavery and racism, but she does it in such an accessible way that everyone can connect to it. Some people are very literary and their work's very difficult to get into, and they're saying great points and great things, but it's a headache to read. You can't really get through it, and it gets a little bit annoying, and you put it down, so you're not talking about those subjects because it's not accessible for you to read them, if you know what I mean. Whereas Maya Angelou does it in such a human way that anyone can pick up her stuff, anyone can read it, anyone can be educated on these different topics, and it's amazing. I think that is a real skill, honestly. So I adored this. I then read a children's picture book. This is called The Promise. This is written by Nicola, Davies, illustrated by Laura Carlin. And I'm going to give you kind of a talk through review of this so you can see what I mean. So when the book starts, it's all grey and dark, and you meet this young girl who, she's a street kid, she's homeless, she has to steal to get by. It's the mean streets, everyone's mean to her, and she has no hope in her life. She then mugs an old lady down an alleyway. It gets real. And the old lady says to her, you need to promise that if I give you this bag, you're going to plant whatever in it. So the girl says yes. She takes the bag away. There's no money in it whatsoever, but there's loads of acorns. So the girl starts planting the acorns in the city. The mugging isn't like, it doesn't go into it massively. So if you're going to read this to a child, it's not like, wow, a mugging. All the plants grow and it's stunning and lovely and cute, and that's basically it. So what the story's really saying is, if, you know, we're living in concrete and darkness all the time and sirens, sometimes that's why people are mean, because they haven't got enough nature and beauty around them. So there's a beautiful illustration there. I loved it when all the plants came to life. And it's also got a pay it forward effect, because the girl spends the rest of her life planting plants in different cities. I don't know if she's got permission for that. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know what's going on there. And then at the end, she gets mugged by a street kid, and she says to the kid, you need to promise to plant whatever's in my bag. So she's paying forward. Someone helped her life. She's helping their life out. I just thought this was a nice, cute little book. And then last but not least, I finished a book that I've spoken so much on this channel. It's been in so many TBRs, been like, need to read, never read, the years have flicked by. The Railway Children. I feel like it's such a big moment for me. By Nesbit. I finally finished you, and I'll never reread you ever. Anyway, here's my review. The Railway Children. This is by Nesbit, and I don't really know what to say about it. It was serialised originally, so go into it knowing that. What that basically means is it was in like a magazine weekly. A tiny bit of the story was printed in it each week, and that's how it came to be. So she didn't write this book in its completion and then publish it and then serialise it. She serialised it as she went along. She was writing it as the magazines came about, and then decided to publish it in a book. So it was book form in 1906. It's about 3 children who live a very lovely middle class life with their mum and dad, and then their dad goes away and they don't know what's happened to him, they don't know why they've gone away, and then they have to move to a very rural part of the UK and become working class and live with their mum. So the 3 of them live near this railway station, which they become obsessed with. They form this lovely friendship with the porter. It's very English, it's very charming. It's in many ways very similar to Little Women in this kind of class system change, charming kind of book. Nothing really happens though. Go into this book knowing that not a lot happens, and that a lot of the short stories within it are very similar. There were little stories in this that I enjoyed. I would say the original film takes all the great parts of this book and puts it out there, so I love the original film more than this book. There's a lot about trains and about the mechanics of trains and how trains work, which isn't really in the films, and I found a little bit boring and slow within it because it felt like it was dropped in there because the author wanted to tell you about trains, but it didn't fit that the children would have this much knowledge about trains and that they'd be getting in-depth conversations with adults about the mechanics of a steam train. It didn't make sense to me in those bits. And when you find out where their father has been, that's very shocking, and there are little shocking things within it. One thing that I would say that I think is really good in this is their mum has very severe depression. So they say she's ill, she's too sad to get out of bed today, let's go down to the railway station. So that's why they're always out the house on these little adventures, because they can't stay in the house because she's really sad. And there's a bit in it when she's talking to the little boy and he's saying, I miss my dad. And she's talking about God, and she's saying, you know, because they are a Christian family, trusting God, God will know the path and the way for us. And then the boy says to her, do you always believe that? And she says, no. When I get really sad and miserable, I don't, because I can't believe in anything. At the time it was published, for the mum to be like, actually, I get so low when I can't even see God or anything. I thought that was really good in it, and also how the children don't blame themselves for her being sad, they just know that she is because of the situation and their dad. One thing I would say is there's a character in this, right? Oh my god, the oldest one, who's called Roberta, and the narrator, so the author talks to you a lot within this story. I found that a little bit boring, but the author is saying to you, everyone calls this character Bobby, so I'm just going to refer to her as Bobby. Roberta walked down the lane, and I'm like, sorry, you just said you were going to call her Bobby, now she's Roberta again. The flip-flop of that was really grating and bizarre. This book is a short book, but it's actually a very slow thing to get through because, like I said, it slogs itself along a lot of the time. Also, the kids aren't that poor, and they keep saying they're living in poverty and they're poor, but they're not. And the author, I like, kind of tells you that they're not. There's a bit in it where the little boy is going to get like ice buns, and the porter's like, oh, I thought you had no money though. I thought you were poor, you said. And the boy's kind of like, oh yeah, we are. And so there's little bits in it where the characters are kind of telling you, as the reader, these children think they're poor, but it's just because they've had such lavish lifestyles before. Their mum doesn't have like a proper job like a maid or something like that. She's an author, and so she sells stories and articles, and it's only when her articles sell that they make money, but they must have some kind of savings. I mean, she didn't go into it hugely because it's just about the children, but they weren't like Dickensian poor, don't think that, although they do talk as if they are throughout the book. I loved Phyllis. Oh my god, Phyllis, the youngest, was just absolutely clumsy little beast, and I loved it. Every other line with Phyllis was like, she just spilled a drink down herself as she was talking. I liked how they kept saying like, everyone goes through bad times and life isn't always happy. And just know this sad time will pass, but it may take a really long time. I think to put that in a children's book like this, as I'm saying, it was serialised originally, so it wasn't meant to be a children's novel like it is now, but nowadays to have this kind of book I thought was really interesting, to have this, like, to tell children life isn't a fairy tale, and sometimes you're going to wake up and feel really sad because life can be really crap at times and really cruel to people, and I thought that was really interesting within it. Also, they make friends with someone who is on the train every day, so they wave at the train, they make friends with an old man who's on the train. I thought his relationship with the children was really beautiful within it. There's a man who works at the train station, it's his birthday, and they do a surprise birthday for him, and he's a working class man, and he's like, this is not right, you're seeing me as charity, and it's all kind of the class divide of that. Because they're from a very middle class lifestyle, when it's someone's birthday, they have a big celebration. That's what about, they have loads of presents and luxuries, but working class people obviously don't back then have that kind of thing when they're adults, because they don't have the money to do it. And so I thought that was an interesting scene within it as well, how he kind of shouts at the children and gets really upset with them. There's one scene where a canal boat sets on fire and there's a baby in it and they have to go and get the baby, and I thought, you know, there were exciting scenes, because there were so many more boring scenes than good scenes within it. I didn't, you know, the end was very emotional, I will say that. The end kind of pulls it back, so I can't give this negative a review. So my review of this is quaint English loveliness. No plot, not a lot. Sprinkles of a plot, but nothing really to like sink your teeth into. But quaint Englishness, go for it. Wasn't a huge fan of this, you can really tell it's been serialised. Wasn't a massive fan. And that's it for part one. I've read more books, I'm on a little bit of a book, I don't know, binge. I'm just reading so much recently. So there will be part two, maybe even part three. I don't know how out of hand it's gonna get. Tell me down below what you think of my reviews, if you have read any of these books, what you are currently reading, and I will see you tomorrow for another video.
I am the pumpkin queen, da da da. This is Halloween, 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 Halloween. I am the beast climbing under your bed.
Imagine if you just looked under your bed and there's me like, hey girl, I said I was the beast.